Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. It's July 10th. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's earlier out there in LA. And that's where Paige and Imia are coming from. And shortly I'll introduce them. We've just been talking for like an hour, just to kind of, I did something I hardly do because I've been fortunate that I don't have to do that, but I kind of searched them out and wanted to meet them and do this interview because they have this amazing podcast, which we're going to talk about. This is a moment, it's a fabulous. And I'm not just saying it. I mean, I've listened for hours, and they're so natural and they're real and their backgrounds. I'll tell you about the backgrounds, be it comedy and directing, and it's so LA. But we'll talk about it. But they're so full of pop culture, movies, music, TV, and I love that stuff. And I just don't get it enough to do that. So I kind of sort them out, and we've been planning this thing for a couple of months, actually. So I am thrilled, really thrilled, to have Paige and Imia here in New Jersey. We're gonna, I guess the best way is just to jump in to have you guys do little bios, Paige and Imia, little bios. And then we can talk about This Is a Moment podcast, because I listened. You're so natural. And
thank you.
And I said this before, and I'll re-say it again. Listening to you is like I'm sitting, in the same room, just kind of hanging out with you guys, because you're real and you're knowledgeable and you're funny. And you talk about wonderful things that I don't think enough is spent on these days, with the crazy world that we're in. But you talk about pop culture, and that's so important, because it's part of our lives, and I think more people should, including myself, devote more time to that. So
Yes.
you just have such a style, you guys. And it's such a warm, kind of embraceable style.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I've said my, by the way, this was my Johnny Carson monologue. So
Nice.
Paige and Imia, just a little bios, and we'll jump in and talk about your world.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm Paige, and I studied theater acting at Pepperdine University, and that's where I met Imia, who she studied theater directing, and we really bonded over all the pop culture stuff we love. We love all the same things, and so we really connected over that. I also studied comedy at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. So I do a lot of improv, sketch, and a little bit of stand-up as well. So just combining our interests. So I sort of, I get very passionate about what I love and my takes, and Imia helps, zoom out a little bit and give a good analytical perspective on everything sometimes. And we really wanted to create a podcast to talk about things that we feel like we're getting a little skipped over in the pop culture conversation. And we just also have a big range of interests. And so we felt like there wasn't people who look like us necessarily tackling all our range of interests, or like the people who we're talking pop culture, we're skipping over the stuff that we thought was really important. So we wanted to create this to talk about things we love, though we don't like to bash things really on our podcast. Like I said, I'll get passionate sometimes and I'll be like, no, not that thing, this thing. But like in general, we're talking about stuff we love. So we like to talk about the positives of the things. And yeah, we have been best friends, since college, and we just love talking about this stuff. But I'll let Imia tell you a little bit more about her.
I mean, yeah, you hit a lot of all of it, actually. I did study theater and media production, got an emphasis in directing, love like character study, and kind of that was my favorite part of theater back in the day, was just like getting to the like meat and potatoes of like why this person acts this way or why they make these decisions, what their relationships with their families were like I've treated these people like they were people. And so that's what I loved. And so like me and Paige hanging out and talking about the ins and outs of these characters and movies and why people make these choices. I love it. Like it's literally like where I live. Like that's where we get all the good stuff.
Yes.
But yeah.
And you do. Well, actually, I have all my notes here. I listened to your recap of the 2000s from
Yes.
2007 and
Good
8.
one.
You did the music part, and then you did TV, and again, I mean, I was really engrossed, and I didn't have to listen because I could, but I did, and everybody's going to see here all the places where they can listen to you, and your range there. I think I wrote down. Well, we're going to get to it. We'll get to it. That's just part of a. So let's talk about This Is a Moment podcast, and we know you met at Pepperdine, and how did this get started?
Yeah, it was sort of, when you do comedy, a lot of people in the comedy world have podcasts.
That's true.
And so I had a lot of friends who were starting podcasts, and I was like, I could do one. And I thought it might be fun. And I was like, this sounds fun. And I enjoy listening to them as well. So I just went to Imia and I was like, do you want to just do a podcast? Like we should do one. And she was like, yeah, okay. Like she was totally into it. And we were roommates at the time. So it was easy, but we've sort of, it sort of evolved a few times.
Right.
The first time we did it, we had no idea what we were doing. We were just like mic on, talk, and we didn't really know how to distribute it either. I didn't really do my research. And then we were like, you know what, forget it. Let's do videos instead. So then we kind of were trying to only do a YouTube situation, and we were only talking about TV. So we made it a little more narrow with that one. And then that sort of fell off as well. We needed to pre-plan better. We were just like, go, just do it. So for this final product that we have, This Is a Moment, we really talked it out and thought about it more this time. And, we had some trial and error. So we were coming at it from a better point this time. And we just knew more. And I listened to more podcasts, and I knew I could, I understood better the medium. And so this time we were just better when we came at it. And I think this is the best version of it. So I'm really happy with This Is a Moment. But yeah, it started organically. And I just really felt that I wanted to do it again. I missed talking about that stuff with Imia. Like it had been a couple years since we had attempted another thing. And so I just reached out, was like, do you want to like try it again? Like, I feel like, I don't know, we have things to say. I feel like we're a good pair. Let's maybe try it again. And Imia was like, yeah, like I totally want to. So I was like, oh, good. So yeah, it ended up working out.
How old is this version that you have now? Is it 2 years old? 3
Yeah, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We just completed our second season. So
yeah.
So one of the things you like to talk about is favorite music eras and heroes, and you kind of hone in on the 2000s, I guess. Can you kind of give some background on that?
Yeah, we really grew up in the 2000s. That was like a lot of our childhood. So that is sort of like a reason why it feels like nostalgic for us to talk about that. But we also have a lot of favorite singers. Like we love, R&B and hip hop as well as pop. And so we sort of just admire the same artists, but I'll let Imia speak a little more because we like a lot of the same things, but then we also like branch off and have our own like niches as well. So it's like fun when she brings someone new that I don't necessarily listen to a lot, or like I'll bring in something new that she doesn't necessarily listen to a lot. So it's fun to come together with both our interests.
Right. Yeah. No, I think what I liked the most about when we talk about music is there's so many layers. Like I came from a family that like we loved 90s music. We love like the 2000s R&B era. Like we were all into that. And talking to Paige about it now is so funny because it's like, it still feels so like fresh, but you're like, that was 20 years ago. Like, no, nobody's really like living in that anymore. But it feels fresh. And it's also really funny to talk about it and be like, I was a kid singing these lyrics and being like, I really feel it. Like I'm emotional. I understand. Yes. And I'm like, I was a kid back then. Like me and Paige have lived so much life since then, that it's hilarious at this point to be like, you were 10 talking about, you understand the inner workings of love and like
right the heartbreak,
right? You're
especially
like
with R&B music, it's like a lot about these love songs and stuff. And
yes,
us as children being dramatic singing this and like looking back thinking like, what like we don't even know. We didn't even know what we were talking about, but we knew we loved it.
Knew it was a good song. That's all we needed to know.
Yes. I also love just kind of like looking at the trends and seeing where music is now, and then looking back at like what was popular when we were kids or what was popular like in the 90s and stuff. And it's just funny kind of looking at the evolution of music. Like, for example, since we do love a lot of R&B, it's interesting the evolution of R&B through the 90s to now, because it was considered niche and it was like, a branch off of hip hop, and the incorporation like of hip hop and R&B, and how that's slowly become pop, and how that's kind of like the sound that everyone does now, when before it was considered like that's just over there, that thing. And just sort of how pop transforms, because pop isn't really a genre, it's just what's the popular sound of the time. That's why pop music sounds different all the time. But so it's just fun going back and looking at those things. We also really love music videos. So we would always be playing music videos on YouTube and dancing in the living room. And luckily, we liked the same songs. So we had our little routine of music videos we would play. And it's funny because like I've done that with other friends, and they'll like gravitate towards other music videos, and like Imia wasn't there, and I was like, okay, no, me and Imia have a set pattern. We like to go like 90s Mariah Carey to Destiny's Child, then early 2000s Mariah and Beyonce, and then a couple Missy Elliott, some Sierra, Ashanti, back to Mariah and Beyonce. So and like my friends were doing a different thing, but I was like, wait, no, I like the order that Imia and I do. So we just, have a lot in common.
Interesting.
Go ahead,
Imia.
Oh, nothing. I was just gonna say trying to mix up our order, and that's not how it goes. That's just not the way.
But it's funny. As I mentioned before we went on air, I came out of the '60s, and as the '60s gave birth to the '70s, I became a little bit more detached, and I went through long periods of time just kind of staying in the oldies, '50s, '60s. I mean, that's where I came from. That's who I was, and in the '60s we had a lot of things to say about the war and racism and stuff, and even the beginnings of environmental stuff was beginning to happen. But in my new life, as I mentioned, as a journalist, it's funny, I've had a resurgence, or maybe a reawakening to music. And I remember it was 11 years ago, my son on July 4th, 11 years ago, said, "Dad," because the poor guy, I used to make him listen to '60s music incessantly, and of course he would go up to his room and listen to what he wanted, but when he was around me. But he took me to my first rock concert.
Oh, cool.
In Asbury Park, New Jersey, this music mecca. And I had never been to a rock concert before. Southside Johnny was there. It's all part of the Springsteen sound. But in my years as a journalist, as I hung around music, I began to expand my world, not so much to R&B, but to jazz. I'd never,
Yeah.
and New Brunswick has a great jazz, and actually Rutgers in Newark has one of the largest. It's called the Rutgers Jazz Institute. Has one of the largest collections
Oh,
of
wow.
jazz memorabilia in the world.
That's interesting.
Count Basie donated a ton of stuff to Rutgers.
Wow.
So
That's so
I
cool.
really started jumping in jazz, going to jazz nights, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is
Right.
great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love jazz.
Yeah, so it's very evocative and emotional. Yeah, it's not happy-go-lucky stuff, but it's. But anyway, so I'm
It
listening.
can be.
And so I'm on my way to kind of expanding my horizons. So moving along, you do talk about celebrities,
Mhm.
and so name some of the celebrities you like talking about on the podcast.
Well, anyone who listens to the podcast will know that I'm a very huge Mariah Carey fan.
Very huge.
So I often talk about Mariah and I pretend we're friends. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But yeah, it's just we're on a first name basis. It's just Mariah. I don't have to say
Right.
Carey.
So
and
true.
but it's fine because Imia also likes Mariah. If she were sick of hearing it, she'd tell me to shut up, but she doesn't. But we also love Beyonce, as we mentioned. We've talked about Beyonce, but we also love like Queen Latifah. Like she had so many movies that were part of our childhood that we really loved. And we talk about Viola Davis and Denzel Washington. Like there's just so many artists that we really admire their work, and whether and so like we'll focus on specific works that they did that we think really were game changers or just inspired us. So like for Viola Davis and Denzel Washington specifically, like we talked about like which movies we think are so incredible. With Queen Latifah, like we talked about what movies like we loved as kids and how she's just had this huge expansive career that I feel like people don't really recognize. Like Queen Latifah is always relevant. She's out here, has done so many things, from hip hop to acting. And it's just a cool person. And then same thing with Mariah, how like she was part of our childhoods, and still how she is just, was a trailblazer in music and this huge sort of pop culture icon. Like she's also always relevant. Like there's always something to talk about with her. And so we just like sort of analyzing the moments that inspire us, or fun moments. Like we also talk about Nicki Minaj, and because she was a large part of like our high school experience, and she has a lot of just like really funny viral moments. We really like big personalities, and just we love the drama and like big personalities. So we like just talking about those moments that happened, like, because sometimes it'll just be like something really quotable. Like Nicki Minaj has a lot of quotable moments that we feel like, okay, this was a moment that we need to dissect. And so we'll like talk about stuff like that as well. But, Imia also loves, like John Bellion. Like sometimes we'll have specific moments for each of us to sort of fangirl out on some things, but I'll let you speak, Imia, about which celebrities you also love.
Yeah, all of those for sure. John Bellion for sure. For me, that like his music came into my life like at a very transitional time. Like I'm in college, I'm kind of figuring things out on my own, and I just feel like he's just a passionate person. And of course, we love really passionate people. So him for sure. I kind of love that we give our childhood like teen icons like a second round of praise. So like Lindsay Lohan, we've done an episode on, Amanda Bynes, people who are having like redemption stories and things like that. Like,
Yes.
who we've only heard back things about in the press, and we just want to celebrate all the solidifying place that they hold in our childhood. They've sat there for so long. We going back and looking at their movies, it's crazy how often we saw them and then just didn't all of a sudden. So I like that we kind of go back and get to give them a little glory.
Yeah, definitely like digging into, because a lot of the work people do is underappreciated, because it's just like, well, that's what's expected. You're a star, but it's like, no, they're also people. And like, do you understand what it means to be working this hard and shelling out this many movies and not have a childhood, if you're a child actor, or a life, if you're an adult, outside of all the work that you're expected to constantly be pumping out. And sort of now, as the world is looking back on like tabloid culture, I mean, we still have it, but it's just like on the internet rather than magazines in the stores. But everyone is sort of taking a look at how toxic that was, and realizing like, oh my gosh, like we were actually really mean to them. And sort of feeling like, okay, let's recognize what we did, and let's actually like appreciate them. I feel like we're doing that a little bit in our work. I also feel like even like with Whitney Houston, we have a Whitney Houston episode. She's really known as an icon in music and just had this incredible voice, but the press was so mean to her, and people were mean to her. Like, I mean, the bigger you are, the more haters you're going to have as well. But I just think back and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we really were not appreciating the talent that she was and giving us. Like, people are just so quick to ridicule and tear down. And so we do like to go back and look at the work and like really appreciate and talk about like, do you guys understand the work that they were doing? Like,
This is so profound what you're saying, because I subscribe to you focus on the positivity of people. And it's so interesting, because when I set out to be a journalist 11 years ago, and I had chances to review films and a lot of CDs and books, and I said to myself, I just want to focus on this positivity to everybody, and so I would never say a bad thing about anybody, and that goes back to when my mother 60 years ago, 70 years ago, made me read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I read it as, an 8, 9, 10-year-old. And she made me read it instead of reading a biography of Jim Thorpe, a football player. She made me read it, and it was brilliant that she did that, because it kind of, so bottom line is, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So somebody else can say it. And so I've always focused, I still focus on positivity. So what you're saying in your work, in your body of work, you focus on the positivity and accomplishments of people that gets pushed aside by overzealous media. That's great.
Definitely.
And maybe that's why I really loved listening to you guys, because everything was positive. I didn't realize it until you said it. And that's great. By the way, Queen Latifah and I are from the same town.
Right. Yes.
Newark.
Super cool.
Love it.
She's I'm very devoted to my hometown, Newark.
Nice.
I was just asked to write a thing for my high school, Weequahic High School. I was asked to write a thing. It's their 90th birthday. And Queen Latifah used to live a couple miles away
Oh my
from
gosh.
me.
Oh my gosh.
And I found out about that. And I found out about there was a food market she used to love to go shopping in. And I would have loved, it was too much work. And there was no positivity in bumping into her. But I would have loved to go to that supermarket once a week and see if I can bump into her.
Right.
Yes.
Talk
She
about,
frequents it still.
yeah. So I think she moved. I don't know where she's not there anymore. But she's really good to Newark, and she takes care of Newark. And
good.
she's just a great, oh, by the way, she was in, I just watched the movie last week. She was in a movie with Adam Sandler
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes,
called
I haven't
Hustle.
watched that yet.
She
Yes.
plays Adam Sandler's wife in the movie, and it's 100%, and it works so well.
I
Oh,
want to
great.
see it.
Great.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'll have to watch that one.
It's streaming on one of the streams.
It's Netflix.
And yeah, Netflix. It's a, and I even made my wife watch it because it, even though it's a basketball movie, but she's great, and it's just, I mean, it's really believable.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Being married to Adam Sandler, of course, he's not
Yeah.
funny, he's serious, and
Right.
by the way, I loved the movie, so go watch it.
I have to watch that
Nice.
one.
Speaking of those things, let's talk a little bit about movies and movies you love and things that kind of inspire you in movies.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely we've got I keep going. I feel like I'm the childhood like nostalgia one. Princess Diaries was a huge thing for us. We kick off our second season with that one. It's just, and I think it's got so many great, like Deborah Martin Chase and, oh, not that one. I'm sorry. Did I mix that one up?
No, she did.
She
They
did
produced
that
that.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I
Whitney
thought.
Houston's production company, Brown House, with Deborah Martin Chase, they produced the Princess Diaries.
That's right. And oh my gosh, now I'm blanking. Shonda Rhimes wrote the second
sequel,
one.
yeah.
So it's just so many like people that we are so attached to anyway, that we didn't even know when we were watching it originally, but getting to talk about it now, and just celebrating like what these stories of like a girl kind of taking control of her own life. Love those. Definitely always take a moment for those. I don't know, Paige, can you think of some more?
I know we talk about the Cinderella musical with Brandy, the Rodgers and Hammerstein's version with Brandy and Whitney Houston. Like we really loved that. Iconic. Yeah, the movies, we usually take a moment for our nostalgia movies. We do, of course, love current movies as well, but the ones that we have actual episodes about are a little more of our nostalgia childhood movies. We also talk, one of our favorite movies is Beauty Shop with Queen Latifah. Like we quote that all the time. We think that movie is so funny. and then like with our Denzel Washington episode, we talked about Imia, what's your favorite one?
Devil in a Blue Dress.
Devil in a Blue Dress.
That movie. So good.
Yes. Super cool. Noir.
Yeah. Right. Ben Patel's. Love it. Whole thing.
I'm Philadelphia with Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's heavy stuff. It just rips me up.
Yeah, he's not always the lightest actor, is he? Like,
I know.
It's not those light films, really.
Yeah, not those light ones. And then like we always like to do like a throwback animation moment. So we talk about some Pixar movies in our season 2. So we love like Finding Nemo, and then Toy Story. We talk about and sort of we talk about the friendships within the Pixar movies, and Monsters Inc. as well. Like those were big childhood staples that were so funny, and you can still watch them today and feel like the same way. Like they are sort of timeless, and that they're about a buddy duo overcoming something. And so it's fun to revisit those and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I still love it, or it still has these same feelings. It sucks when you like love something as a kid and then you watch it now and you're like, what was that? Why did I like that? Like, so like those ones still hold up for us. And we also, Disney Channel original movies specifically were really big when we were a kid. I don't know if they hold the same weight for children anymore, but for us, there was always like commercials about the newest Disney Channel original movie. So we like taking a moment for our favorites. I also think it like it is probably a clear indicator of when you grew up, like depending
Right.
on what your favorite Disney Channel original movies are. Cause they went for a while. There's some really old ones, and then
Right.
there's like newer-ish ones where we sort of taper out, and I'm like, I wasn't watching those around that
Yeah.
time anymore.
Lost interest.
But we love like Stuck in the Suburbs, which was a fun one, and the Proud Family movie,
Cheetah Girls.
Cheetah Girls. That's one of our super favorites. Felt
Yes.
like young girls are like always trying to be a girl group.
Right. We have to
I-
celebrate that.
Yes, we did. I was always like with my friends, like, okay, we need to rehearse. We got to get the dance down because we're going to be a girl group. And it was funny. My boyfriend's like, why are all girls like that? Like his sister was the
Why do you
same,
like
and
that?
she's like younger than me, but she was doing the same thing. He's like, why are girls like always trying to like be like, we're
Make a
going to be a
girl
girl group where we got to get the dance down and we got to rehearse. Like,
It's just what it is.
it's just what
Yeah.
happens.
Various, like a very specific time because we had to like wait. There was no streaming. So it was like when Disney movies were
Right.
coming out, you were ready. Like you had to be at
Yes.
home. I think it was the Lizzie McGuire movie. They didn't
Mhm.
even, I was going to miss it. And I remember like being very torn up about it. Like I was very
Yes.
upset and
Oh.
triggered that
Yeah.
I was not going to get to see it when it came out. I was going to have to wait until it, replayed.
That's how I felt
So-
about the Even Stevens movie. I wasn't going to be home when it was
Right.
premiering, and I was like, Mom, and she was like,
triggered.
we can tape it. We taped it, like we recorded it. But I didn't realize that, yeah, they were just going to play it over and over on Disney Channel.
Right.
But I had it on tape.
So funny, I'm listening to you guys, and I'm going back to when Disney came out with the Mickey Mouse Club,
Right.
Mhm.
and it was in black and white because there was no color TV. I mean, that's how far back I go.
Yeah.
And I kind of cross generations really nicely. I mean, I taught at Rutgers a couple of years ago, so I can relate to you guys
Mhm.
really well, and maybe that's why I taught. But I grew up. There were 7 black and white TV stations that went
Wow.
off the air at midnight.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
No
like
TV.
have heard people talk about that, how it was like
Yeah.
TV was just like over at a certain
Over.
time.
And
Like
they put this,
No TV.
this thing. Each time they put this. Actually, you saw it in the movie Poltergeist, and
oh,
you saw this. It was a test pattern, and they let it stay up there for 8 hours.
They're like, we'll be back.
Yeah.
that is so funny.
Yes. So, listening, but so I don't identify with a lot of I mean, I didn't see a lot of these cartoon
Right.
things. I was already too old, but
Right.
I certainly appreciate Disney. They came out with Invincible some years ago, which is
Mm,
a wonderful movie about a true story about a bartender who made it to the Philadelphia Eagles.
oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
just a marvelous movie.
Yeah.
I watch it all the time. It's so inspirational. He's a bartender.
Right.
Winds up playing for the true story.
That's pretty
Matter of
cool.
fact, I'm trying to
Interesting.
get a hold of the real guy, and maybe if I can interview him.
Yeah.
Ooh,
He was in the 70s.
That would be cool.
So anyway,
nice.
I just want to go off topic. I didn't
Okay.
forewarn you on this, but it's a great question. You don't have to answer it, and you can come up with 1 or 2 answers if you want. I just like asking it. So here goes. And again, you don't have to. And it's but here's the scenario. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Mariah Carey.
Obviously.
Also, though, I would love to spend a day with like Diane Carroll. Like she's really fabulous.
Yes.
And that would be really cool.
Amazing. I'm a Kerry Washington girl. I wish I could just like,
yes.
I like would be her best friend. I feel like and she probably wouldn't also want to be friends, but I just would like force that, really be like, we're gonna be besties and let's just hang out. I'd help watch our kids, like whatever. Like I would be friends. I feel like
Yes.
hopefully that day would establish me as a friend.
Good answers. Good answers. All
you.
right, back. So continuing, we just did movies. How about TV shows, TV stars that
Yes.
you particularly like and get inspired from?
Yes. Well, as Imia said, she loves Kerry Washington. I also love Kerry Washington. We were huge Scandal fans.
We were.
So man, we were in it, and we would it was on half of it we were in college for, like or most of it. But
Right, yeah.
and so we would get together in our dorm and watch it with a little group of us and just be going off, and
Right.
talking about it afterwards and being like, oh my gosh, no, she needs to da 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 da, or I hate him, he's doing this. And
Right.
it was just so fun and such like a communal experience. And then yeah, when we were roommates, it was still on and we would watch it too. And I remember we had this roommate who like wasn't not into it, and she tried to like come in the living room one time and like watch
Roast it,
and
yeah.
was like trying to talk bad about it. I wanted to cuss her out. I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You've never even watched the show. Get out. Don't be here when we're
I
watching this, because you're
know.
ruining our sacred Scandal time.
Right.
So she got the message. I didn't have to say all that, but she didn't do that with us again. And I was glad, because I was like, don't ruin this.
Stop.
This is our thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was offensive.
It was so rude.
We
but
were very triggered.
we were triggered. But we also love like Abbott Elementary. That's a new TV show that we took a moment for in our second season, just because it's been such a breath of fresh air and so
Right.
popular online. Like everyone's talking about it and we all can't get enough. So that's a great comedy that we really love. We
Yeah.
also really loved Insecure. With TV, we go back and forth a little more with current and past. So Insecure was a more current one. It just ended, but we talked all about the 5 seasons and what we loved and our favorite moments.
Right.
And that was another like big cultural staple. But some older shows that we talk about are like Sister Sister. Like we both loved that TV show growing up, and it's just like, it's so good. It's definitely one of my favorites. I rewatched the entire series while we were all locked down at home, and I was like, this is such a great show. Like it
Quality.
still holds up. It just feels good. It's funny. Everyone's great. The chemistry, like really, really love Sister Sister.
Okay.
And yeah, what about you, Maya?
I'd say some of my favorites were for sure Insecure. I took such a huge break off of that show. Like I was watching it and then just kind of fell off. And Paige watched it the whole way through. And so coming in and rewatching all of it together, I was like, oh my gosh, this show is just going to be in the canon forever. Like that it's secured its place. And so that, like, having that conversation was so fun, and kind of digging into why it was important, why maybe I didn't connect with it as much at the beginning, and then living a little bit more and going through working and having those working relationships and having professional and friendships and romantic like learning all of that stuff a little bit more, and then having more to connect it to and being like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Got it. So all of that. And then of course, Girlfriends.
Right. Yeah.
A huge show for my parents group, actually.
Yeah.
Like my parents were like advocate watchers of Girlfriends. And then I remember like sneaking to watch it as a kid. And so getting to watch the full thing now without having to hide that I was watching it was so good and so fun. We definitely are like, if this show had come out now, it would be Twitter would be on fire. Like it would just be something to talk about every week for sure.
Yes. Girlfriends was a TV show that inspired a lot of current writers, I would say, or it
Right.
birthed like people who were beginning their writing careers on Girlfriends now are heads of TV shows and
Right.
running things type of thing. So I had learned a lot about Girlfriends just from being in the writing world and hearing a lot of TV writers like reference it all the time and
Right.
talk about it and how it was this big show, because my mom didn't watch it when I was growing up. So I didn't really see it on like that. But I really loved Tracy Ellis Ross, that actress. And so then I watched it just to study up on TV and because it just seemed like a great show. And yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And it was so like, they really talked about things that I wasn't expecting because
Right.
when you're coming into a sitcom, you're expecting it to be a little more lighter versus now we have like a lot more dramedies and whatnot. But for more of a sitcom vibe, I wasn't expecting them to tackle like colorism and different facets of race and religion and
Right.
parenting. Like they were really going for these topics. I was like, whoa, and doing it though in a way that wasn't like exhausting. It was
Right.
and always doing it in a way that stirred conversation though. You'd have different
Mhm.
characters taking on different points of view. And, you know, I remember like watching and thinking like, whoa, and sort of like talking and like having my thoughts as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this came out when Twitter had just started, yeah, everyone every week would be like, da, 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 like all over Twitter. I just know it because they were really tackling these conversations that
Right.
I don't feel like people were really talking about on TV, especially not the mainstream sitcoms. Like when you think of Friends or
Right.
Seinfeld, like those staples that are really popular that a lot of people watched, they were not talking about like I love those shows, but they weren't really talking about like these hard-hitting subjects. And
Right.
so for Girlfriends to be doing that, have gone on for 8 seasons, and I just really admired it. I was like, whoa, they were really out here doing the work. And I feel like that is something I see in a lot of Black TV shows.
Yeah.
They are often tackling the subject matter that people shy away from, and they just do it in the most genius way, I think.
Right.
No, it's funny, when I was your age, kind of, they had this revolutionary TV show that came out called All in the Family.
Mhm.
And that was pioneering. It was Norman Lear, who's still alive today. He's like 98 and he's
Yeah.
functioning and he's sharp. But they and I just watched a rerun the other night on Amazon Prime. I found it on Amazon Prime and I watched one of the shows when Sammy Davis Jr. kisses Archie Bunker
Mm,
at the end of the show. And I mean, it was like an historic show.
yeah.
And they tackled things, you know, if you're at Pepperdine and you're studying the history of TV, All in the Family is a major contributor to the changing of the guard in TV and putting out products that dealt with race and religion and LGBTQ things even before those initials were out.
Hmm.
Just totally revolutionary. And again, it was way back when, like I said, I was, your age. So I get a kick out of listening to your enthusiasm in your diagnosis of shows, because I was kind of like that. And by the way, it's funny. I spent my day today listening to your podcast from, I told you, 2000s.
Hmm.
Especially but before that, I've been watching Seinfeld reruns
Hmm.
on Netflix. So
Yeah.
I just sit here for the last few weeks because I'm a binger.
Hmm.
I love binging.
Yeah.
Before I want to binge, I ask my wife if she's going to the market, pretzels, popcorn, give me all that
Norm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the snacks.
Yeah, and I binge and I just watch the stuff. And you're so right. Seinfeld, there were no issues other than the most ridiculous circumstances and funny.
Right. And I love that. Like I do like Seinfeld,
Yeah.
but yeah, they weren't, you know.
No, you're not going to learn about modern day life. You're going to learn about silliness and absurdity. And
Yeah.
that's funny, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, because I didn't watch it when it
Seinfeld.
came out. No, I told you I stopped watching TV.
Oh, right.
I refused to watch, and my wife would rave about this new show called Seinfeld. And she said, "You got to watch it, Cal." I said, "I ain't watching TV, you know, because of Dallas. I ain't watching any more TV," and I didn't, and until finally, maybe in the seventh or eighth season, I watched it. I said, "Wow, this is good." And I don't know if they were doing a lot of stuff with reruns, and there was no streaming back then, but I'm
Yeah.
making up for it now.
Nice. That's so
Gotta get all
funny.
your TV.
It is funny, and I get a kick out of this. It's great stuff. And I just learned today about the expression yada yada yada.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes, that was a show I watched. Yada yada yada.
Yep. Yada yada yada.
Great stuff.
Yada yada yada.
Yes,
I
great
mentioned
stuff.
the bisque.
Yes. Moving on. Favorite plays, musicals.
Yes.
All the things.
We love the theater.
Yeah.
We definitely, well, we have an episode where we talk about our favorite movie musicals, which is, you know, I feel like, you know, coming from theater, a lot of people in theater they usually think the movie musicals aren't as good as the stage production. And, you know, sometimes that may be true, but we like to say we appreciate movie musicals though, because it gives access to more people to see it. Not everyone has access to go to Broadway or go see a live, you know, touring show, etc. So we do appreciate when musicals are adapted into films. And growing up, like we really loved Chicago, the movie musical, as well as Dreamgirls. Like I really loved Dreamgirls, and Hairspray was one that was pretty popular. It was on a lot. I don't know that Hairspray is one of my favorites, but it's definitely like one I watched a lot. It was on TV all the time, and I liked the music of it when I was a kid. And what's the other one we talk about?
Cinderella in that one too.
We talk about Cinderella in that one. Yeah, I love the music. Yeah, and the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella. It's so great.
Yeah,
but we also love like Legally Blonde, the musical.
Right,
a classic.
Wicked. I think we talk about.
Yeah, Wicked was like really big in our childhood. Like I remember like in middle school, it's what everyone was doing. Everyone was like, we're going to Wicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's Wicked? And that was one I bought the CD for before having even seen it. And I loved the music. And then I was able to see a live production eventually. But yeah, Wicked, so good.
Yeah. That was me like sitting at the computer, like full desktop with the big like bubble back one.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And like having to like look up the songs and like listen to them. I'm sure my grandparents were exhausted at some point because they had the computer at their house. So I would just be playing it out loud. So I'm sure they have heard plenty of Wicked in their time that they didn't want. But yes, for sure Wicked, for sure Hamilton. Let's see what else.
I also really liked Annie as a kid. That movie musical, as well as the stage production. I think it's super cute and a great story. And yeah, that was one because my mom also like really loved Annie. So that was one I would play a lot as a kid and just had so much fun. But we also, you know, studying theater, we read a lot of plays as well, going to school. And I didn't read this in school, but I remember someone performed a monologue for it. And then I read it later, but The Mountaintop by Katori Hall, which is about Martin Luther King Jr. And his last days, like before
the night before he was killed, he gave a speech. He was at he was at a rally for sanitation workers. And he gave this speech, I Have a Dream. Mountaintop. Powerful.
Exactly. It's a fictionalized It's a fictionalized story about what happened like in his hotel room. But I really love it because
I saw that.
oh, you saw the play?
Yeah, I saw
Awesome.
that. Well, it was Muhammad Ali was in that thing too, I think. I'm trying. I saw.
Oh,
You know
You
what I'm
might
talking about? There were four-
the Kent Powers movie and play.
One Night in Miami.
There you go.
yeah, that's it.
There
Yeah,
you go.
that's I mean, I love Ali.
Yeah.
Of course, I love Dr. King.
Yeah.
Long stories. It was my thing with Dr. King that I told John Lewis when I met him, the connection, and that's when he grabbed my hands.
Oh wow.
And what a moment in my life. Because
Yeah.
we had a connection. It's a long story, a powerful connection. But anyway, moving on. The last thing I just want to ask, by the way, we could, we could talk for hours, and maybe, you'll come back because there's so much, and I want to probe and talk about old movies, not now, like
Right.
Casablanca and stuff. Because by the way, we talked about it before we went on air. You kind of blew me away because when I talk to younger generations about that movie Casablanca, nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
That's so funny. No,
And-
I like watching classic films.
Right.
Yeah, and so when you off topic, so when you were studying film and stuff, did you delve into much of the tech noir, the black and white movies of old days?
We didn't we studied theater at Pepperdine, and then the media production program was a little bit different than the film department.
Okay.
But as a kid growing up, I just really loved like the glamour of old Hollywood.
Right.
So I just was into watching old films.
Yeah.
And so I would just do that with my mom, and I didn't study that in school. Wasn't told about that or anything, but I had like a Vivian Lee phase. I love A Streetcar Named Desire. I think it's an incredible performance, and I love the play. Like I love reading it. I think it's amazing. And then I had
Stella.
yes, Stella.
Stella.
And then I was like into Elizabeth Taylor. I had a Marilyn Monroe moment. I watched like all Marilyn Monroe movies. I was sort of watching a bunch of old Hollywood glamour
Great
films.
stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I love bios, and I watched Marilyn Monroe was like off the charts brilliant.
Yeah. I think people write her off a lot. And I'm like,
Right.
no, she had like, I think people try to just be like, what? She was just hot. Like that was her thing. And I'm like, okay, she actually was like a performer though. Like, I don't think you can't just be hot and like suck at everything. Like she
Right.
obviously had some talent. She entertained people, and she was funny and fun to watch on camera. So like when people are, because like there is a lot of hype around Marilyn Monroe, but which might not have been given to other people who maybe were equally or more talented. But I don't really like it when people try to dismiss it as she was just like this pretty person, because I'm
Brilliant. She was
like
brilliant.
she was doing stuff like
Yeah, she really was. She really was. She got into her own stuff, and but she had to fight that blonde stereotype.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I like How to Marry a Millionaire. I think that's a fun movie. And then Gentlemen Prefer Blondes,
Yeah.
also really fun. But my favorite is I really loved what's the name with Jack Lemmon?
Some Like It Hot.
Some Like It Hot. That was
Oh.
I watched that a lot as a kid. My mom also really liked that one. She's not necessarily the main central character, but it's a funny movie. Although I haven't watched it in a really long time. I wonder how that would hold up as far as like gender.
It does.
It does.
You know what? It does. It does. I watched it a couple months ago. I have it. I have all old movies here, and especially during a pandemic, you got nothing to do for like 6 weeks, so you just watch old movies.
Yeah.
Documentaries.
Yeah.
But it holds up. The storyline, I mean,
Okay.
all of it holds up.
Nice.
Right down to the last line. Nobody's perfect. I'm a man. Nobody's perfect. Great.
Yeah.
Good. So, but you'll come back. We could just talk about all this stuff. Last question to officially ask you, any childhood inspirations that you had that kind of molded you?
My very first play that I saw was Aida, and
Wow.
that was
Is that the Triumphal March or something in that, I think, or trying to
maybe
remember.
there's also an opera of Aida too.
That's
So
I'm thinking of
sometimes,
the-
yeah,
yes. Okay.
sometimes those two get mixed up too. And I think the story's still the same. But you should sing a little bit more in English, so there's that.
Okay.
But I remember seeing that movie and that play, and that was like, this is what I want to do. Like, that was the end. This is my passion. This is what I want. Just seeing, the storyline. It was all about storytelling, and that was what drew me. I was like, I knew nothing about this play coming in. I'm like 13 at the time, and I'm like, this is it. Yep, that's what I want to do. So that was my childhood inspiration to all of this. That's what kind of kicked me into watching behind the scenes in movies, and like trying to learn all the actors' names, and why I wanted to go into theater in college and everything like that. So that was for sure my childhood inspiration.
Yeah, I was always inspired by really funny women, and definitely TV. I was a big TV watcher. So, and like the women in my family, especially my mom, are very funny, and like my mom loves to tell stories. So I feel like I got some of that from her, but like I loved the TV show That's So Raven, which was on Disney Channel when I was a kid. Like I feel like that, and like I used to watch a lot of I Love Lucy, so Lucille Ball
Right.
inspired me. And I also was watching a lot of Saturday Night Live, and they would play reruns of Saturday Night Live as well. And I was watching a lot of the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph era, and then that went into Kristen Wiig also. So I just was obsessed. I loved laughing. I loved TV and comedy. And so these women were comedians that inspired me to be funny, but it didn't really click for me until a little later, when I did my first play in middle school, because I was a gymnast growing up. So like, even though like me and my cousins, we would make movies like every holiday, we'd get together and be like, let's make a movie. And, we'd like do it sort of on the fly and be improvising. And like, we were always filming things, but in my head, I was like, I'm going to the Olympics. Like I'm going to be an Olympic gymnast. Like I wasn't like, I'm going to be on TV. But then I ended up quitting gymnastics, and then I had more time for other things. So then when I did my first play, when I first stepped out on stage, I was like, this is the best feeling in the world. I want to do this forever.
Yeah.
And so doing my first play like made me be like, oh, I want to do this. But I was like, I was already sort of obsessed with TV and film anyway. And it just didn't really like click that, oh, I could go try to do this. And yeah, after that, I was like, this is what I want to do. And people were kind of like, are you sure? Like you should maybe try something else. But I was like, what's the point of trying something else? Like, this is what I want to do. And so I feel like it just grew. But my mom watches a lot of TV and I watch a lot of TV. So I feel like those women I was always seeing like subconsciously influenced me, and I wanted to be big, funny women like they were. So
We did it.
we did it.
We did it. This was great stuff. It was, as Dunkin' Donuts says, it was worth the wait,
Yes.
So the last thing to ask where can people, hear your podcast?
Yes.
And I'm gonna have all that. I'm gonna blast that all over the bottom of this, but if you want to just quickly mention.
Yes, you can find This Is a Moment podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify and Anchor. And we're pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can find us. You can also follow us on Instagram. Our handle is at This Is a Moment Pod. And we also have a Twitter, which is at This a Moment Pod. There's no is in that one.
Okay.
And we're actually expanding our YouTube. So be on the lookout for some more YouTube things coming your way. If you guys want to subscribe to our channel, we are This Is a Moment podcast on YouTube. Or for the super fans, you can join us on Patreon. We have patreon.com/This Is a Moment podcast, where you can get bonus content. Since we do seasons throughout the year, where you're limited to 20 episodes a season, but on our Patreon, we produce more content. So you can get some bonus episodes and some video content, as well as some fun merch on there as well.
That's great. Wonderful. So, please come back. I mentioned this to you. I'm hugely loyal. Anytime you want to come back, experiment with content, whatever. I sit here in this chair 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's worn out. Literally, I could put the camera on this. It's all worn out for years. But please come back, because you guys are delightful.
Yes,
Your
thank you.
show is so embraceable. And I really mean that.
Thank you.
This has been wonderful, and it really was worth the wait.